Obed here, transmitting live from GB Music Group Studios in Dorado, Puerto Rico, with episode 58 of the Ruben Obed Show. And the subject for today is Ruben Obed proving the existence of God. That's right, I want to prove the existence of God. So if there are any atheists out there who doubt who God is, then I'm going to give you some proof. And here it goes. All right, first of all, in life, you got matter, you have time, and you have space. Those are three things that need to exist at the same time, because if you have matter and you don't have space, then where would you put the matter? And if you have space but you don't have time, then when would you put it? You know what I'm saying? So all three of these things have to exist at the same time, simultaneously. Now, the God that created all of this cannot be affected by time, space, or matter. He has to be outside of time, space, or matter, because time, space, or matter cannot exist, unless it's at the same time. So it's like this computer that I have here. This computer, the creator of this computer is not inside this computer. He's not in there changing the numbers. No, he is outside of this computer, right? He is independent of this computer. He created it. He made the computer, and the computer functions according to his design. So that's what God is. God is something beyond the something that created the something. You know what I'm saying? See, our brain cannot comprehend the vastness of God, And as a wise man once said, if I could fit the divinity of God into my 3-pound brain, he would not be worth worshiping. Because God is way beyond the capacity of my little 3-pound cerebral cortex to grasp it and to understand it. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I recently did a slew of videos about atheists. And, atheists, well, they don't believe in God, and they're really angry and blah, blah, blah. Now, I said to them, and I proposed a question to them, and I said, okay, well, if God doesn't exist, why are you so adamant in disproving that he exists? Why don't you have the same agenda against the Smurfs? Why don't you have the same agenda against Santa Claus? Why aren't there atheists against the tooth fairy? So their own insistence on debunking God proves that he exists as well. You know what I'm saying? So atheists want us to give you proof of God. Well, I just gave you some proof. I gave you an explanation about matter, and how God predates all of that. Even the Bible says it. Read the Bible. In the beginning. In the beginning. That means predates, that it has a set time. It begins. In the beginning, God created. That means that there is a beginning, and God was before that beginning. All right? That's another proof that God exists. Now, I got into it with these atheists. They're talking about, but if atheists are doctors, atheists are people that help heal, are scientists that create. Absolutely, because God, in his infinite wisdom, created the doctors and gave them the intelligence to make the medications and gave them the intelligence to be those things that they are, But these people do not want to acknowledge the existence of God. So now let me tell you, for atheists, if it's so hard for you to believe that God just created everything out of nothing, right? If that's so hard for you to believe, then how is it that you even believe your own thoughts? Because your own thoughts come out of absolutely nothing. So then you shouldn't even you shouldn't even trust your own judgment, because your mind makes thoughts out of nothing. I mean, that alone is the existence of God. Should I go on? Now, scientifically, on a scientific level, you look at the DNA structure, all right? You can clearly see that it is something intricately made. It isn't something that just created by chance. You know, it's detailed, it's organized, it is thought of. Now, who thought of it? Who created it? You know, who? It has to be the creator. Somebody created it because it's there, you know. So and there has to be an intelligence behind the design of a DNA structure. Who created it, atheists? If you don't want to believe in God, who created it? You know, I mean, then if you want to take it on a spiritual level, all right, the Bible teaches us without faith nobody can see the Lord. So atheists, in that aspect, if you have no faith, of course you're not going to see the Lord, because you have to believe in God by faith. You know, and faith is precisely the absence of proof. That's called faith. Jumping at it without proof, without the logic, without the evidence. But see, the atheists don't want to understand that. See, I could prove God by faith, but I can also prove God by his own works, you know? And that is the problem with people. They don't want to believe in God, but they do believe in God. That's the thing. That's why they talk about God so much. You don't, seriously, man, you don't see people adamant about like getting rid of the tooth fairy from schools. No, let's ban the tooth fairy. You know, we don't know because we don't agree with that. You don't see that, you know, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't bother atheists not to believe in the tooth fairy or the presence of Santa Claus. You know what I'm saying? So now let me ask you a question. You don't believe in God. You don't want God in the schools. You don't want God here and there. Okay, I understand all those points. Now, if you don't want religion, why is it that I've never seen an atheist organization, all right, I've never seen an atheist organization boycotting, let's say, the horoscope? Yeah, astrology in certain aspects is a religion. But no, they don't complain about astrology. Oh, no, see, because the attack is against God, you know? Now, there's one atheist, he goes on YouTube, and he was saying, oh, yeah, that the atheists, going back to that subject, are doctors and whatnot, and blah, 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 and trying to downgrade Christians. Yet, what's one of the biggest hospitals out there that treat children with cancer? St. Jude's. Had to be faith-based. You see what I'm saying? Christians and faith organizations have been in the forefront always of the fight against, against disease and against, genocide. It's always been the Christian missionaries, the Christian churches, the Christian hospitals, the Catholic charities, always faith-based organizations. And there may be one or two atheist organizations that organize to try to make a difference, because you know what? We all, believers in God or not, we all have, good inside of us. God created us all in his image. So we have bad and we have good. The mere fact that an atheist can do good is proof that a good God created them and instilled those good feelings in them. But they want to denounce God. But that's their decision. See, they got free will, What else can I say to prove God? Well, if God didn't exist, then we wouldn't exist. If God didn't exist, then what would be? Answer that, atheist. What would be? What would exist if God did not exist? Because if atheists know it all, then you should know what would exist. I think it's illogical to negate the fact that there is a God that created things, and then atheists have no explanation of where everything came from. All they say is a big bang. Shit, a big bang could be a fart. Even the fart comes from somewhere. You know, if you take an M80 or firecracker and you blow it up, or stick a dynamite and you blow it up, you got there a big bang right there. Yet, why is it that those big bangs don't create anything with life in their explosion, in their detonation? Because it proves that a big bang does not create. No, creates a mess. It creates a mess, particles all over, you know, but it doesn't create anything with an intelligent design, you know. If you look at animals, man, look at fish, look at how they have a breathing system underwater, which we don't have, you know. Look at even my cats. I've noticed when winter comes around, their fur gets like puffier. Their whole genetics detects the changes in the climate, and they start growing more hair to compensate for the cooler temperatures. Everything that God created is like detailed, you know. Look at sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. Remember that song? Anyway, that shit's old. Maybe I'm just old head. But look at sex. When you have sex, the female genitalia lubricates naturally. See, because that's how God intended it to work. That's why I can tell you easily that homosexual sex does not work. It's not natural, because there's no natural lubrication process. Don't get mad at me, get mad at nature. Nature doesn't want to accommodate your homosexual agendas. Not me. Don't blame me. You know? God made everything with a design. God made everything with a plan. God made everything. God knows what the hell he's doing. But these people don't want to believe in God. They don't want to accept that there is a God. I mean, they can do that, whatever, but I think in life it is reasonable to have a, you know, because if atheists really want to go into the science of everything, so I'm going to approach this from a scientific level. I think it is reasonable to say that creation is complicated by design. It's complicated. Like if I were to try to make I don't know, maybe a paper bird, and if I tried to design with, like, you know, little servos and motors and plastic and fake feathers, if I try to design a bird, it is extremely complicated to make it work. You see little birds flying back and forth. So if us as humans, we cannot accurately recreate, you know, a bird, even a fake plastic bird. I mean, it takes scientists and it takes computers to make something, you know, that could flap. You know what I'm saying? Look at the intricacies of creation itself. You know, at a subatomic level, look at how complicated all that stuff is, you know. But then you don't want to accept that there's a God. You know, let me tell you something. The word God isn't a name, you know. We know the name of God as Christians. We know that it's Jehovah the Father, and it's the Trinity. That's just the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and the Son being Jesus Christ. We know that as Christians. But the word God is a title. It's something supreme. It's something beyond. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it is reasonable to say that, and atheists, I know how atheists have to agree with me, it's reasonable to say that we as human beings do not have a full understanding of how all this shit was created. We don't have a full understanding. Shit, we don't even have a partial understanding. So it is reasonable to say that it was created by something which is beyond our comprehension. And what is something huge beyond our comprehension? What is something so enormous and magnificent that can create everything and its intricate details? Man, if that is not the definition of God, I don't know what is. You know, we can't even make it to the moon without going through all this trouble. And yet, a being, if you want to call it a being, if you want to call it God, if you want to call it whatever you want to call it, you know, we can't even make it to the moon. Yet you got galaxies 10 million light years away, and that's not even scratching the surface. So atheists, who made that? Did an atheist make that? Seriously, did an atheist make that? I want to know. You know, what's your explanation? You know? But, so, that's pretty much all I gotta say, man. I mean, if you don't believe in God after what I just said, then what the hell to tell you, man? But seriously, you know, God is real. Problem is that a lot of people, when they talk about God, they talk about their concept of what God is. They talk about a limited God. You know, God has no limitations. You know, people say, oh, well, if God loves the world so much, how come you got genocide? How come you got people? I cannot question a God that is so supreme. That would be like an ant questioning me. You know, I'm not even gonna answer. You know, based on my size, based on my, you know, in comparison with an ant. And I don't have to give an explanation to an ant. That's what makes me God, the fact that I don't have to answer to you. God doesn't have to answer to you. You are an ant. Yet, God, in his mercy, chooses to answer us. Occasionally to some. Wow. I would never answer to an ant. Probably I would squash an ant if it bit me. That's what happens sometimes. We as human beings, we bite God in the foot. You know, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, we disrespect God. And then God says, yeah, squashes us. That's what makes him God. So you guys better be careful of God's wrath. Don't forget that you are an ant. Next to God, you're microscopic. You make no difference. You are not important. You are not smart. See, when the atheists realize that you ain't shit next to God, that's called humility. Humility means that you ain't shit next to God. Your futile attempt to try to discredit God is bullcrap next to what God thinks. You know, people they don't want to even try to comprehend how huge God is. You know, and I'll close this up with this. Recently, I've been watching a lot. I watch a lot of Netflix, and there's a show which is about like creatures, and it's called Supernatural, right? And in the show, there's a couple. This is like in the beginning seasons, like maybe season 4 or 5, something. But anyway, there was something in particular that one of the angels, like, he got in the body of like a human. Now I'm gonna mention none of this is biblical. You know, like that show is like totally inaccurate. You know, in a lot of stuff. So, but anyway, it's just a show. It's a TV show. So an angel, he's in a body of a guy, right? Which is an actor by the name of Misha Collins. Anyway, the angel's name in the show is Castiel, right? And one of the guys had asked Castiel what he would look like if he were like outside of that body. And Castiel answered him, "If I was outside this body, I'd be bigger than a three than a what was it? I'd be 3 times bigger than a 10-story building." I mean, when he said that, I said, "Damn!" And I know this is a show, but it gives you a contrast, a comparison of what an angel in that show size is. So now let me tell you, if an angel in a show says that he's 3 times higher than a 10-story building, you know, um, imagine the size of God. Imagine the size of God. I mean, your brain cannot even comprehend the size of God. You know, just to put it simply, look at the vastness of space. Look at the billions and millions of light years and galaxies and the size of all those, you know, of the stars and the size of the sun. And after you imagine that bigness, imagine God just holding it right there in his hand like this. Like that. That's the size of God. Peace, Ruben Obed.